The rain slammed against the diner's windows, a relentless drumbeat that drowned out the world. I was 22, sitting across from John, my best friend's dad, in a booth that smelled of coffee and regret. His blue eyes, usually steady, flickered with something I couldn't name, something that made my chest tighten. It was a Thursday night in Willow Creek, a nowhere town in upstate New York where secrets clung to the air like damp fog. I'd known John Miller my whole life. He was the guy who taught me how to throw a spiral, who grilled burgers at summer barbecues, who never missed a chance to rib me about my city boy dreams of escaping to New York City. John was straight as an arrow, a widower who raised his daughter, Sarah, my best friend since kindergarten, with a quiet strength that made him the town's unofficial pillar. But tonight, in this diner, something was different. His hands, rough from years of carpentry, fidgeted with a napkin. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking through me. "Eli," he said, his voice low, almost lost in the rain. "There's something I need to tell you." I leaned forward, my heart thudding. Sarah wasn't here. She was off at college, leaving me and John to our occasional diner meetups, a habit we'd fallen into since she left. I'd always felt a pull toward him, a warmth I chalked up to hero worship. He was 45, broad-shouldered, with salt and pepper hair and a laugh that could light up a room. But I was a gay kid in a small town, and I'd learned early to bury feelings like that. John was untouchable, Sarah's dad, the straightest guy I knew. Yet here we were, and the air between us crackled with something unspoken. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely steady. He exhaled, his gaze dropping to the table. "I don't know how to say this without sounding crazy." He paused, and the silence stretched, heavy as the storm outside. "I've been thinking about you. A lot." My breath caught. The diner faded, the clink of dishes, the hum of the jukebox, the rain. It was just John and me, and the weight of his words. I wanted to laugh it off, to pretend he meant something else. But his eyes locked onto mine, raw and unguarded. This wasn't a joke. This was real, and it was terrifying. I'd spent years hiding who I was. Willow Creek wasn't exactly a rainbow flag paradise. Growing up, I'd heard the whispers, seen the looks when I didn't date girls or join the football team. Sarah was my shield, my confidant, the one person who knew I was gay and loved me anyway. But John, he was the last person I'd expected to see minute just as Sarah's friend, but as me. And now he was saying things that turned my world upside down. "John, I fumbled, my mind racing. "You're not. I mean, you've never." "I know." He cut in, his voice rough. "I've never done this. Never thought I could. But it's you, Eli. It's always been you." The words hit like a punch. I wanted to run, to hide, to pretend this wasn't happening. But I couldn't move. His confession hung between us, fragile and dangerous, like a thread that could unravel everything. Sarah, the town, my carefully built walls, all of it was at stake. Yet, as I stared at him, I felt something shift inside me. A spark of hope, reckless and wild. That maybe, just maybe, love could find a way in a place like this. The diner's neon sign buzzed outside, casting red light across John's face. He looked younger, vulnerable, like a man standing on the edge of a cliff. I didn't know what to say, but my hand moved before I could stop it, brushing against his on the table. His fingers twitched, and for a moment, we were connected not by words, but by something deeper, something that scared me as much as it thrilled me. "Eli," he whispered, "what are we doing?" I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that this moment, this impossible, beautiful moment, was the start of something that would change everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. My tiny apartment above the hardware store felt too small, the walls closing in as John's words replayed in my head. It's always been you. How long had he felt this way? How had I missed it? I thought of every barbecue, every fishing trip, every time he'd clapped me on the shoulder and smiled. Had there been signs? Or was I too busy hiding my own feelings to notice? The next morning, I met Sarah for coffee at the same diner. She was home for the weekend, her blonde hair pulled back, her eyes bright with stories about college. She didn't know about last night, and I wasn't about to tell her. How could I? Hey, Sarah, your dad confessed he has feelings for me. Wasn't exactly a casual conversation starter. But as we talked, I couldn't shake the guilt. Sarah was my family, the one person who'd stood by me when I came out to her at 16. If I pursued this, whatever this was, would I lose her? Eli, you okay? Sarah asked, stirring her coffee. You look like you saw a ghost. I forced a smile. Just tired. Late night. She raised an eyebrow, but let it go. That was Sarah, perceptive but never pushy. As we chatted, my phone buzzed. A text from John. Can we talk? Meet me at the lake tonight. My stomach flipped. The lake was our spot, mine, Sarah's, and John's, where we'd spent countless summers swimming and laughing. Now it felt like a battlefield. That evening, I drove to Lake Willow, the gravel crunching under my tires. John was already there, leaning against his pickup, the fading light catching the lines of his face. He looked nervous, a rare sight for a man who always seemed in control. I shouldn't have said anything, he started, not meeting my eyes. It was selfish. You're Sarah's friend, and I'm too old for this. John, stop. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. You don't get to say that and then take it back. Not now. He looked at me then, his eyes searching mine. You don't understand. Eli, this town, Sarah, my life fight's all I've got. If this goes wrong, then we'll figure it out, I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. But don't pretend you didn't mean it. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The lake lapped gently against the shore, and the air smelled of pine and possibility. Then John reached out, his hand grazing my arm, and I felt it again, that spark, that pull. It wasn't just attraction. It was trust, built over years of knowing each other, now twisting into something new. But as we stood there, headlights cut through the dusk. A car pulled up, and my heart sank. It was Sarah. Sarah's car door slammed, the sound sharp in the quiet night. Her silhouette moved toward us, her steps quick, her face unreadable in the dim light. My pulse raced. Had she seen John's hand on my arm? Did she know? Eli. Dad. Her voice was curious, not accusing, but it still felt like a spotlight. What are you guys doing out here? John dropped his hand, stepping back so fast it was like I'd burned him. Just talking, he said, his voice too casual. Eli was telling me about his art school applications. I nodded, my throat tight. Yeah, you know, the usual. The lie felt sour, but Sarah didn't push. She hugged me, then her dad, oblivious to the tension crackling between us. Let's head back, she said. It's freezing out here. We piled into John's pickup, Sarah in the middle, chatting about her college friends. I stared out the window, the lake disappearing into the dark. John's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, and I knew he was as rattled as I was. This was our first test, and we'd barely passed. Back at the Miller's house, Sarah dragged me to the living room for a movie night. Like old times. John excused himself to fix something in the garage, but I caught his glance, half apology, half longing. I wanted to follow him, to finish what we'd started. But Sarah's laughter kept me rooted. She was my anchor, and I was betraying her. The next few days were torture. John and I avoided each other, our texts short and cautious. I threw myself into work at the hardware store, restocking shelves and dodging questions from nosy regulars. Willow Creek was too small for secrets. If anyone saw us together, if they suspected anything, the gossip would spread like wildfire. I'd seen it happen to others. The queer kid who left town after too many whispers. The couple shunned for stepping outside the norm. John had more to lose than I did his reputation, his daughter, his place in this town. But I couldn't stop thinking about him. At night, I'd sketch his face in my notebook, tracing the lines of his jaw, the weight in his eyes. I'd always drawn to make sense of the world. But now my art was a confession. Each stroke a piece of my heart I couldn't say out loud. A week later, John called. "Meet me at the old barn on Route 17. He said, his voice low. Midnight. The barn was a relic, abandoned years ago, its red paint peeling like old skin. I got there first, the moonlight casting shadows through the broken roof. When John's truck pulled up, my heart leapt. He stepped out, wearing a dark jacket, his breath visible in the cold air. "I can't stop thinking about you," he said, closing the distance between us. "It's driving me crazy. Eli." "Then why are we here?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Why not just let it go?" "Because I can't." He grabbed my hand, his grip firm but gentle. "I've spent my whole life doing what I'm supposed to. For Sarah, for this town. But this feels real." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to fall into this moment and forget the consequences. But fear clawed at me. "What about Sarah? If she finds out, we'll tell her," he said, his voice steady. "When the time's right. I won't hide you, Eli. Not forever." His words were a lifeline, but they also scared me. Telling Sarah meant risking everything. I pulled my hand away, pacing the creaky barn floor. "John, you don't get it. This isn't just about us. It's about her. This town. Everything we've built." He stepped closer, his voice soft but firm. "I know, but I've never felt this way. Not since." He trailed off, and I knew he meant his wife, Emily, who died when Sarah was 10. The pain in his voice was raw, and it broke something in me. I kissed him. It was sudden, reckless, my hands gripping his jacket as our lips met. He froze for a split second, then kissed me back, his hands on my waist, pulling me closer. The world fell away, the barn, the town, the fear. It was just us. And for the first time, I felt whole. But reality crashed back fast. A creak outside the barn made us pull apart, hearts pounding. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. John nodded, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Stay here." He stepped outside, and I held my breath, listening to the wind rattle the old wood. When he came back, his face was pale. It was nothing, just the wind. "But we need to be careful." We left separately, my mind spinning. The kiss had changed everything, but it also made the stakes clearer. This wasn't just a fling, it was a choice that could upend our lives. The next day, I saw Sarah at the library, her nose buried in a textbook. She waved me over, grinning. "Eli, you've been weird lately. Spill what's going on." My stomach twisted. I wanted to tell her, to confess everything, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I shrugged. "Just stressed. Art school stuff." She studied me, her eyes narrowing. "You sure? You know you can tell me anything, right?" I nodded, guilt choking me. As I left the library, my phone buzzed. Another text from John. I meant what I said. We'll figure this out. Together. I wanted to believe him. But doubt gnawed at me. Could we really make this work? Could love survive in a town that judged? In a life built on expectations? I didn't know. But as I walked home, the memory of his kiss burned in my chest. A promise and a risk I wasn't ready to let go. The days blurred into a haze of stolen moments and sleepless nights. John and I met in Secretat the barn, by the lake, in the shadows of Willow Creek's quiet corners. Each touch, each whispered word, felt like a rebellion against the world we knew. But the weight of our secret grew heavier, pressing against my chest like a stone. Sarah noticed. She didn't say it outright, but her glances lingered, her questions sharper. You're always busy now, she said one afternoon at the diner, poking at her fries. And Dad's been weird too. What's up with you guys? I froze, my coffee cup halfway to my mouth. Nothing's up. I lied, hating how easily the words came. Just life. You know. She didn't buy it. But she didn't push either. That was the worst part, her trust in me. Unwavering. Even as I betrayed it. I wanted to tell her. To rip off the bandage and face whatever came next. But John and I had agreed to wait. She needs time. He'd said. We need to be sure. Sure of what? I wanted to ask. Sure that this wasn't a mistake. Sure that we could survive the fallout. But every time I saw him, my doubts melted. His smile. His steady hands. The way he said my name was all I needed to keep going. One night, we met at the barn again. The air was thick with summer heat. The crickets a constant hum. John pulled me close, his lips brushing my forehead. I'm falling for you, Eli, he murmured. I didn't think I could feel this again. My heart soared, but fear followed close behind. What happens when people find out? This town, they'll tear us apart. He cupped my face, his eyes fierce. Let them try. I'm not ashamed of this. Of us. His words were a lifeline, but they didn't erase the reality. Willow Creek was a place where tradition ruled, where different was a dirty word. John had lived here his whole life, built his carpentry business from nothing, raised Sarah through grief and hardship. If we went public, he'd lose more than whispers lose customers. Friends. Maybe even Sarah. The next morning, I woke to a voicemail from Sarah. Eli, we need to talk. Meet me at the lake. Now. Her voice was tight. Nothing like her usual warmth. My stomach dropped. Did she know? I got to the lake before her. The water glassy under the early sun. When Sarah arrived, her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. Eli, what's going on with you and my dad? She asked, her voice trembling. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The truth was there, clawing to escape, but I couldn't say it. Not yet. Sarah, it's complicated. I managed, my voice weak. Complicated. She laughed. Bitter. You're my best friend. He's my dad. If something's happening, I deserve to know. I wanted to tell her everything about the diner, the barn, the way John made me feel alive. But fear stopped me. What if she hated me? What if she hated him? Before I could answer, she shook her head and walked away, leaving me alone by the water. That night, I went to John's house. He was in the garage, sanding a table, sawdust clinging to his arms. Sarah knows something, I said, my voice shaking. She asked me point blank. John set down his tools, his face pale. What did you say? Nothing. I couldn't. I paced, my hands in my hair. We have to tell her. John, this is tearing me apart. He nodded, slow and heavy. You're right. Tomorrow. We'll do it together. But tomorrow never came. That night, a fire broke out at the hardware store where I worked. It was small, contained, but the town buzzed with rumors. Arson, they whispered. Someone had seen a figure near the store before the flames. By morning, the sheriff was asking questions, and my name came up. I hadn't been there, but I'd been seen leaving the barn with John the night before. And in a town like this, that was enough to spark suspicion. John found me at my apartment, his face grim. They're saying you started the fire. Eli, it's nonsense. But people are talking. Why me? I asked, my voice cracking. I didn't do anything. He pulled me into a hug, his arms strong and warm. I know, but this is what happens when people don't understand. They lash out. The fire was a wake-up call. Our secret wasn't just ours, Anna Maria. It was a spark that could burn down everything. I pulled back, looking into his eyes. We can't keep hiding. If we're going to do this, we have to be all in. He nodded, his jaw tight. I'm in. Eli, I've never been more sure of anything. But as we made plans to tell Sarah, to face the town, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a storm. The fire was just the beginning, and Willow Creek was watching. The sheriff's questions lingered like smoke. I wasn't a suspect. Not officially. But the whispers followed Meadow and Main Street. Through the diner. Even at the hardware store as we cleaned up the fire damage. Eli's always been trouble. I overheard Mrs. Carter mutter at the grocery store. Hanging around with that Miller man too much. The words stung. But they weren't wrong. John and I were trouble. Just not the kind they thought. We decided to tell Sarah that weekend. John invited her over for dinner. And I was there. My palms sweaty as I helped chop vegetables in his kitchen. The house smelled of garlic and rosemary. But the warmth couldn't mask the tension. Sarah arrived. Her smile forced. Her eyes darting between us. Something's up, she said, setting her bag down. You two are acting weird again. John glanced at me, his expression steady but nervous. Sarah, sit down. We need to talk. She crossed her arms, staying by the door. About what? I opened my mouth, but John spoke first. Eli and I, we're together. His voice was calm, but his hands gripped the counter. It's new, and it's complicated, but it's real. Sarah's face went blank, then red. Together. Like, together. She looked at me, her eyes wide with betrayal. Eli, he's my dad. How could you? Sarah, I didn't plan this. I said, my voice breaking. It just happened. I love him. The word slipped out before I could stop it. Love. I hadn't even said it to John yet. But there it was. Raw and undeniable. John's eyes softened. But Sarah's hardened. You love him. She spat. He's twice your age. He's straight. This is insane. She turned to John. Dad, what are you doing? You're not gay? John stepped toward her, his voice gentle. I didn't think I was either. But Eli's different. He makes me feel alive. Sarah laughed, sharp and bitter. Alive. Mom's been gone 10 years. And now you're throwing away everything for him. She grabbed her bag and stormed out, the door slamming behind her. The silence was deafening. John sank into a chair, his face in his hands. I wanted to comfort him, but guilt held me back. I'm sorry, I whispered. It's not your fault, he said, his voice muffled. She just needs time. But time wasn't on our side. By Monday, the town was buzzing. Sarah hadn't kept quiet, she told her friend Becca, who told everyone else. Suddenly, John's carpentry shop was quieter. His phone stopped ringing with jobs. At the diner, people stared when I walked in. Faggot, someone muttered as I passed. I kept my head down. But inside, I was breaking. John refused to back down. He started holding my hand in public. Small acts of defiance that thrilled and terrified me. Let them talk, he said one evening as we walked by the lake. They don't get to decide who we are. But the pressure was relentless. The fire investigation dragged on, with no leads but plenty of suspicion aimed at me. Then came the vandalism. Someone spray-painted queer on John's truck. He scrubbed it off, his jaw tight, but I saw the hurt in his eyes. We should leave, I said one night, lying in his bed, the moonlight spilling across the sheets. Go to New York City. Start over. He turned to me, his hand brushing my cheek. And leave Sarah. My business. This is my home. Eli. It's my home too, I said, my voice cracking. But it's killing us. He didn't answer, but his silence said enough. Leaving wasn't an option not yet. So we fought on, stealing moments of joy in the chaos. A late-night drive, his hand on my thigh. A quiet morning in his kitchen, laughing over burnt toast. Each moment was a rebellion, a reminder that love was worth fighting for. But Sarah wasn't speaking to either of us. I tried calling, texting, even showing up at her dorm. But she shut me out. Give her space, John said. But I could see his heart breaking too. Then came the town meeting. The fire had rattled Willow Creek, and people wanted answers. John and I sat in the back, holding hands under the table, as voices rose, some blaming me, others whispering about unnatural relationships. When John stood to speak, the room went quiet. I know you're scared, he said, his voice steady. But blaming Eli, blaming us, won't fix anything. We're not your enemy. We're just trying to live. A few nodded, but most stared, their faces hard. As we left, I felt the weight of their judgment, but also John's strength beside me. We were in this together, for better or worse. The town meeting marked a turning point. Willow Creek didn't just whisper anymore, they shouted. John's business dried up completely. Clients he'd had for decades canceled, citing personal reasons. My shifts at the hardware store were cut, the manager avoiding my eyes as he mumbled about budget issues. We were pariahs, our love a scandal that fed the town's hunger for drama. But John wouldn't break. He started taking odd job fixing fences, repairing porches, anything to keep going. We'll get through this, he told me, his voice fierce. They can't take us down. I wanted to believe him, but doubt crept in. Every glare, every whispered slur, chipped away at me. I stopped sketching, my notebook gathering dust. The joy I'd found in John was still there, but it was tangled in fear and guilt. Sarah's silence was the worst. I missed her laugh, her sarcasm, the way she'd always known what to say. Now, she was a ghost in my life, and I'd helped make it that way. One night, John found me at the lake, staring at the water. You're pulling away, he said, sitting beside me. Talk to me, Eli. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. This is bigger than us. What if we're ruining everything? He took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. You're not ruining anything. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. His words warmed me, but they didn't erase the truth. We were fighting a losing battle. The fire investigation had stalled, but the rumors hadn't. Someone slashed my tires, leaving a note, leave town. John wanted to go to the sheriff, but I stopped him. It'll only make things worse, I said. He looked at me, his eyes blazing. I'm not letting them scare us off. This is our home. But was it? I wasn't so sure anymore. I started looking at apartments in New York City, telling myself it was just a backup plan. John didn't know, and I wasn't ready to tell him. Leaving felt like betrayal, but staying felt like drowning. Then Sarah called. It was late, the phone buzzing as I lay awake. Eli, she said, her voice soft but strained. Can we talk? In person. I met her at the diner the next day. She looked tired, her blonde hair messy, her eyes searching mine. I don't understand this, she said, stirring her coffee. You and Dad. It's a lot. I know, I said, my heart pounding. I never wanted to hurt you. She sighed, leaning back. I'm not mad anymore. I'm just confused. He's my dad, Eli, and you're my best friend. How do I deal with that? I don't know, I admitted. But I love him, Sarah. And I love you. I don't want to lose either of you. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I don't want to lose you either. But I need time. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. I hugged her, relief flooding me. Maybe we could rebuild, piece by piece. But the town wasn't done with us. That night, someone threw a brick through John's workshop window, glass shattering across his tools. Scrawled on the brick was one word: freaks. John stared at it, his hands shaking. And for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. We can't stay here, I said, my voice breaking. Not like this. He turned to me, his face pale. You want to run? I want to live, I said. With you. Somewhere we don't have to hide. He didn't answer. But the next day, he started looking at job listings in New York City. It was a small step, but it felt huge. We were planning a future, even as Willow Creek tried to tear us apart. Sarah came around slowly. She started texting me again. Short messages at first, then longer ones. She even joined us for dinner one night. Awkward but trying. I'm not okay with this yet, she said, looking at John. But I'm trying. That's all I ask, he said, his voice thick with emotion. As summer turned to fall, we made plans to leave. John sold his truck, and I applied to art schools in the city. The vandalism continued, graffiti on my apartment. Hate mail in John's mailbox, but we held on. Our love a shield against the hate. Then, one crisp October morning, everything changed. The sheriff called. They'd found the arsonistic kid from the next town over, angry about a business deal gone wrong. My name was cleared, but the damage was done. Willow Creek had shown its true colors, and we were ready to leave it behind. The air was sharp with autumn as John and I packed up his workshop. Tools clattered into boxes, each sound a step toward a new life. We'd found a small apartment in Brooklyn, affordable if we both worked. I'd been accepted to an art school, and John had a lead on a carpentry job. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Sarah helped, her presence tentative but steady. I'm still processing, she said, taping a box shut. But I want you both to be happy. John hugged her, his eyes glistening. You're my world, kid. Always will be. She nodded, looking at me. You too, Eli. Don't screw this up. I laughed, the sound shaky but real. I'll try. Leaving Willow Creek wasn't easy. John had built his life here, and I'd grown up in its shadow. But the town had made its choice. And so had we. The night before we left, we sat by the lake one last time, the water reflecting the stars. John's hand found mine, his grip warm and sure. I'm scared, he admitted, his voice low. But I'm more scared of losing you. You won't, I said, leaning into him. We're in this together. The move was chaotic boxes. Goodbyes. The ache of leaving Sarah behind. She decided to stay at college, promising to visit soon. As we drove away, Willow Creek fading in the rear view, I felt a weight lift. The city was loud, overwhelming, but it was a blank slate. No whispers, no judgment, just us. Brooklyn was a shock. The noise, the crowds, the way no one cared who we were. It was freedom. John found work quickly, his hands steady as he built furniture for hipster cafes. I started school, my sketches coming alive with color and hope. We'd kiss in the morning, rushed and laughing, before heading to our separate lives, knowing we'd come home to each other. But the past wasn't done with us. A month in, Sarah called, her voice tight. "Someone's asking about you guys." A reporter. "They're digging into the fire. Your relationship. Everything." My stomach dropped. "What do they want?" "I don't know," she said. "But they're talking to people in Willow Creek. Be careful." John and I sat on our tiny balcony, the city humming below. "Let them dig," he said, his jaw tight. "We've got nothing to hide." But I wasn't so sure. The reporter's story hit online a week later, a sensational piece about the scandal that drove us out of Willow Creek. It painted me as a troubled kid, John as a confused widower. Comments flooded in, some supportive, most vicious. I stopped reading after the first few. "It doesn't matter," John said, pulling me close. "They don't know us." But it did matter. The article reached Sarah, who called in tears. "I hate this," she said. "They're making you sound like monsters." "We'll be okay," I told her, but my voice shook. The city was supposed to be our escape, but the world's judgment followed us. We fought back in small ways. I started a blog, posting my art and our story, raw and honest. John joined me, sharing photos of his work, our life. Slowly, strangers reached out, queer kids, older men who'd hidden their truth for years, couples who'd faced their own battles. Their words were a lifeline, reminding us we weren't alone. Sarah visited for Thanksgiving, her first time in Brooklyn. We cooked a chaotic dinner, laughing as the turkey burned. "I'm proud of you," she told me later, her eyes soft. "Both of you." It wasn't full acceptance, but it was close. As we hugged, I felt the pieces of my life coming together. John caught my eye across the room, his smile warm, and I knew we'd made the right choice. But the reporter wasn't done. They emailed, wanting an interview. "We're not a story," John told them, his voice firm. "We're just people." They didn't listen. A second article came, digging deeper, quoting old neighbors who called us disgusting. It hurt, but it also lit a fire. We weren't just surviving anymore, we were fighting. For us, for Sarah, for everyone who'd ever felt like they didn't belong. As winter settled over the city, John and I stood stronger. We weren't perfect, but we were real, and that was enough. Winter in Brooklyn was brutal, the wind cutting through our thin coats as we navigated our new life. John and I were finding our rhythm, morning coffee runs, late-night talks on the balcony, stolen kisses in the chaos of the city. But the articles had left scars. Every time my phone buzzed, I braced for another hit piece, another stranger's judgment. We were free, but not untouched. My blog grew, a small beacon in the noise. People commented, shared their stories, queer teens from rural towns, older couples who'd hidden for decades. One message stood out, a man in his 60s, saying our story gave him courage to come out to his kids. I read it to John, my voice thick, and he squeezed my hand. "We're doing something good," he said, "even if it's hard." Sarah was coming around too. She texted more, sent photos of her college life, even joked about visiting again. But she still struggled with us. Her texts sometimes sharp with questions. How did this even start? Are you sure this is what you want? I answered honestly, but I knew it would take time. Then came the email that changed everything. A local LGBTQ+ center reached out, inviting us to speak at their annual gala. Your story resonates, they wrote. It could inspire others. John was hesitant. Public speaking wasn't his thing, but I saw the spark in his eyes. This was a chance to take control, to tell our truth on our terms. We said yes. The weeks leading up to the gala were a blur of nerves and preparation. I wrote a speech, my hands shaking as I typed. John practiced in our tiny living room, his voice steady but his hands fidgeting. What if they hate us? He asked one night, his vulnerability raw. They won't, I said, kissing him. They'll see us. The night of the gala. The center was packed, queer kids in glitter, older couples holding hands, allies cheering. Sarah came, surprising us, her smile tentative but real. When we took the stage, John gripped my hand, his palm warm against mine. I spoke first, my voice shaking. We didn't choose this fight, I said, but we chose each other, and that's worth everything. John went next, his words simple but powerful. I spent my life thinking I knew who I was. Then I met Eli, and I learned what love really means. The room erupted in applause, and I saw Sarah in the crowd, tears in her eyes. Afterward, she hugged us both, her voice soft. I get it now. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying. It was a turning point. The gala gave us a community, a place where we weren't defined by Willow Creek's hate. We started volunteering at the center, mentoring queer youth, sharing our story. John's carpentry skills came in handy, building shelves for their library. My art became part of their walls, vibrant murals of love and resilience. But Willow Creek wasn't done with us. A third article dropped, this time with photos, grainy shots of us at the lake, at the barn. Someone had been watching us, long before we left. The headline screamed betrayal, painting us as predators who'd torn a family apart. Sarah called, furious. They're lying about you, she said. I'm coming to the city. We're fixing this. She arrived the next day, her laptop open to a draft response. We're telling the truth, she said. All of us. Together, we wrote a letter to the reporter, our words raw and unfiltered. We talked about love, about fear, about fighting for a place in the world. Sarah added her own words, defending her dad, defending me. We posted it on my blog, and it spread, shared by strangers, picked up by local news. For every hateful comment, there were 10 messages of support. The tide was turning, but it wasn't over. John's old clients started calling, some apologizing, others offering work. My art school professors shared our story, and I landed a small gallery show. We were building something new, not just for us, but for everyone who saw themselves in our fight. As spring approached, John and I sat on our balcony, the city alive below. We made it, he said, his arm around me. Not yet, I said, smiling, but we're getting there. Spring bloomed in Brooklyn, the city softening with green. John and I were stronger than ever, our love a quiet rebellion against the world's noise. Sarah was a regular visitor now, her laughter filling our apartment. She wasn't fully on board with us, but she was trying, and that was enough. Our blog had become a small movement, a space for others to share their stories of love and struggle. We weren't just surviving, we're thriving. But the past has a way of lingering. The reporter reached out again, this time with an apology. I got it wrong, they wrote. I'd like to tell your real story. We hesitated. burned by their earlier betrayal. But Sarah pushed us. "This is your chance," she said. "Show them who you are." We agreed to an interview, but on our terms. We met at the LGBTQ+ center, surrounded by the community that had embraced us. The reporter was young, nervous, their notebook filled with questions. We told them everything: the diner, the barn, the fire, the hate, the love that kept us going. Sarah spoke too, her voice steady. "They're my family," she said, "and I'm proud of them." The article came out a month later, a cover story in a local magazine. It was honest, raw, titled "Love in the Face of Fear." It didn't erase the pain, but it shifted the narrative. Messages poured in, people inspired, people apologizing, people thanking us for giving them hope. John framed the article, hanging it in our living room, a reminder of how far we'd come. My gallery show opened that summer, a small space filled with my paintings, vibrant scenes of Willow Creek, of John, of us. John was there, beaming, his hand in mine. Sarah came too, her arm around a new girlfriend she'd met at college. "Guess we're all figuring things out," she said, grinning. The show was a success, not because of sales, but because it was ours. Strangers saw my art, saw our story, and felt something. A queer teen approached me, eyes wide. "Your paintings, they make me feel like I can be myself." I hugged them, tears in my eyes. "You can. You will." That night, John and I walked home, the city lights bright around us. "I never thought I'd have this," he said, his voice soft. "A life with you. A family." "We're not done yet," I said, squeezing his hand. "There's more to build." And we did. John's carpentry business grew, his work in demand at queer-friendly cafes and shops. I graduated art school, landing a job teaching at the center. Sarah moved to the city, her girlfriend in tow, and we became a family, messy, imperfect, but real. Willow Creek faded, a memory we visited but didn't live in. We went back once, for a friend's funeral, and the town felt smaller, quieter. Some apologized, others looked away. It didn't matter. We'd found our place, not in a town, but in each other. Years later, at our wedding, Sarah gave a speech. "I was angry," she said, her voice carrying over the small crowd. "I didn't understand. But love isn't about understanding, it's about acceptance. And I'm so glad I learned that from you too." John kissed me as the room cheered, his lips warm and sure. The road hadn't been easy. Hate, fear, and loss had tested us, but we'd won. Not by fighting the world, but by building our own. As we danced under string lights, I thought of that night in the diner, when John's words changed everything. We'd been scared, uncertain, but we'd chosen each other. And in that choice, we'd found a truth worth fighting for. Love, in all its forms, is the courage to be seen. We weren't just a story. We were a promisito, Sarah. To ourselves, to everyone who'd ever felt invisible. And as I held John, the music soft around us, I knew we'd keep that promise. One day, one fight, one love at a time.